Viral debrief. Coming up. Hey 7-4 crew, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. My channel, 7-4 Gear, is all about aviation. A lot of you in the 7-4 crew have been sending me a lot of videos, which I can't tell you how much I appreciate because there's some of these that are deep in the archives. I don't even know how you found these on YouTube. If you have a video that you want to see on this series, the two easiest places to send to me, the free form 74gear.com, or you can just send it to my Instagram. Let's get into it.
Overbridge fast experimental turning final 2-4 overbridge.
Well, there's two possible scenarios here. You either have a student pilot or a fighter pilot that doesn't realize how much less power that they have when they're flying their fighter plane than this. But I'm guessing it's a student pilot here that's either doing a touch and go, meaning that they were planning to land and take off again, and that's something you do when you go through flight school to work on your landings, or a go around, which means you were coming into land and things were not looking the way that you wanted it to, and so you do a go around and you go back around and you try it again. And we do that at the airlines. Sometimes we're landing and things are whatever. There's another plane on the runway, or you're landing too long, or there's a bunch of different scenarios, but you say, hey, this isn't safe, and then you go around and try it again. So it's one of those two scenarios that the pilot is doing here, but it just doesn't work out the way that they were hoping for. With a plane of this size, the pitch that they're doing is way too aggressive. It's probably too aggressive for just about any plane except a fighter plane, but for this type of plane, it is way too aggressive of a pitch up. Imagine that you're driving your car down the road at like 60 miles an hour, and for those of you that use kilometers, that's 100 kilometers an hour. But imagine you're driving your car down the road at 60 miles an hour, and you have this really, really steep hill in front of you. As you hit that hill and start going up, eventually you're going to lose momentum and will not be able to keep accelerating unless you're in some type of a crazy muscle car. But in your normal car, you're going to end up losing power and not being able to continue to accelerate. However, if you're going at 60 miles an hour and you hit a small hill, you can continue to accelerate up that small hill if you wanted to. You're going to have to put your foot on the gas, add some power, but you could continue to accelerate, and that's what you want to be aiming for when you're doing a go-around. You want to give yourself a small hill where you're going to be climbing up and away from the ground, but you're going to be getting away from the ground and picking up speed. What this person did is they aimed up to go straight up a very steep hill, lost their energy, and then stalled the plane and went down to the ground. It's my understanding that this pilot was okay. I don't really know about the plane, but you can fix a plane. Anyways, it was my understanding that the pilot was okay, which I'm really glad to hear. And I know from personal experience on doing a go-around, especially when you're new as a student pilot, you can get rattled. Things can get crazy. I know one of the first few times that I was flying by myself, I was coming in and the landing was bad. A lot of my original landings were terrible. I was coming into land, I was like, oh, this isn't working out. I added full power, I started to do a go-around. I forgot to bring the flaps up. Now, anyone knows that when you're doing your go-around on a plane, you don't bring up all the flaps at once, but because I was a little bit flustered about everything that was going on, I ended up throwing up all the flaps at once, which is a big no-no. The plane sank a little bit, but I had enough speed and enough altitude that it wasn't a big deal. I climbed up, I came back around and I landed, and it was fine the second time. But that's a learning experience that some pilots just have to go through, myself included. Sometimes you make mistakes. Now, I have never made a mistake so grave as this, where I stalled the plane, but sometimes you can get rattled, especially as a new pilot. You're coming in, you're wanting to do a go-around, you're nervous for whatever reason, and you just get scared and yank back. Now, unfortunately, in this particular situation, he's going to have an accident or an incident on his or her record for this situation here. But the reality is that most pilots, when they go through flight school, make mistakes, myself included. So if you've done something dumb, like try to do a go-around and almost stalled and you got out of it, use that as a learning experience. Or if you try to do a go-around and lifted up all your flaps at the very exact moment, which would be a very dumb thing to do, which I did. I only did it once, but I was like, oh, okay, that's bad, don't do that. Sometimes as you go through flight school, you're going to make some dumb mistakes, and that's okay. Learn from them, don't keep making them, and you're going to be fine. I really like flying that plane.
waving.
There are a couple possible scenarios of why you would see a plane do this, but none of them should be while you as a passenger are sitting in the back of the plane. Typically, the most you will ever see a commercial plane bank with you on it as a passenger is 30 degrees, and this is way past 30 degrees. One possible scenario that you'll see if you watch a lot of aviation videos is you'll see one wing come up. And sometimes what can cause that is a bunch of wind is actually coming from that side of the airport and will actually push the wing up. And on a plane like a 747, that's not uncommon. You have to put a correction in so the wing doesn't come up. That's one possible scenario, except for this. See how the wings are level here as they get off the ground, and then one wing goes up and then the other goes way up like that? So obviously you don't have wind coming from both sides of the plane as the plane is going down the runway to take off. Typically what you'll notice is that what will happen in an event where you have wind that's coming from one side of the plane is that as it's going down, one wing is going up and the other one is going down while the plane is actually taking off down the runway. And as the plane gets bigger, its bigger wings allows for more air to get underneath it, and so you have to put a more correction in there to keep the wings level while you're actually still on the ground before you even take off. Typically what you'll see happen when there's a lot of wind coming from one side is as soon as they get off the ground, one wing is really high and one is low. But that's not the case in this video. You'll see as soon as they got off the ground, the wings are actually level, which means they were either there wasn't a lot of wind or they were doing the right correction to get that plane off the ground and keep it even with the ground, which is what you want to see. The other possible scenario is that you have a pilot that thought they needed to go left, and then the other pilot said, no, we're supposed to go straight, and so they rolled it back aggressively, which you should never roll it that aggressively, but that's one scenario, which I've heard of that happening. You have a pilot that's taking off, and for some reason, I don't know why, they would think you need to go left when you're only supposed to go straight, and then they aggressively get back on the controls and overcorrect. That's not something that you want to see happen. You'd better to make the mistake and fess up with air traffic control instead of put it so far low that you could clip the wings. That's not something that you want to do. And then the third possible scenario here is that the plane was doing a goodbye rocking wave, which is what I'm assuming is happening. They're doing a rock on purpose, and for whatever reason, they're doing that rock very low to the ground, which you don't want to do. But that just shows you just how much power these 747s have. They're incredible aircraft. And the reason I know that it was light is because as it climbed away from the ground, you saw the pitch up that it had. It was very steep, and they had the gear down. You may not have noticed. These planes, these 747s, you need to get the gear up. When you're trying to slow down a 747, like if we're coming in for landing and we're going really fast and we need to slow down, we throw the gear out because you've got 18 tires and they're big out there and they slow the plane down very fast. So the fact that they're climbing so aggressively and correctly at a correct pitch, they're doing that with the gear out for the beginning part of it. It's incredible. It just shows you just how much power and how much capacity these 747s have. But that's not something that you as a passenger will ever hopefully experience, where the wings are getting rocked like that on purpose from the pilots. But I'm guessing the pilots are doing this on purpose. They're just doing it at a very low altitude, which I don't think is the safest choice, but that was it, and it seemed to work out okay for them. It's not something that I personally would do, but that's fine.
First, they borrow a turbocharged sedan. Then, Joe plans to reach through the sunroof and pull down the disabled landing gear. If this doesn't work, all hope is lost.
Worst case scenario there.
Now, the plane is running only on fumes. Joe knows this is his last chance to save Scott. Amazingly, he does it. Having accomplished this seemingly impossible mission, Scott is able to make a safe landing, and not a moment too soon.
I don't know how old this video was or whoever found this to send it to me, but it's incredible, and it's just funny to me just all the drama that they add into these stories when they put them on TV. So obviously this is really cool and pretty ballsy actually for the guy that's going through the sunroof to get the gear. And I'm not sure if that's because he didn't make his airplane insurance payment or what, but he really wants to get that plane down on the ground in one piece. Truth is, you could land with the scenario that they have here, and there's plenty of videos of it. You could land with your one main gear down and your nose gear down. You could go do that. I actually had a similar situation like this. It was a scare. It didn't actually end up being real, but we had a situation where we thought one of the gear was not coming down. We didn't have the indication light and it was kind of a whole mess. we ended up flying, and I was in flight school at the time, and we were doing time building, meaning one guy's flying and he's using just the instruments, and I'm looking around to make sure we don't hit anything. Anyway, so we're flying around, and I ended up flying out over the tower and asking tower to look to verify that what the gear situation was. Now, they'll never tell you 100%, like, yes, 100% it's down, go ahead and land, no big deal. But they'll tell you if they see it or they don't see it. So they'll say, oh, it appears to be down, or it's not down at all. And so I'm guessing that's probably how the beginning part of this video started, was they realized that it wasn't down. And then I don't know how they got someone out there onto the runway. I've never seen anything like that in modern times. I've seen a lot of videos land where the plane lands with just one of the tires actually stuck inside the plane. I've seen a lot of videos like that. Now, in that scenario, the plane's going to go into the grass, or they could put all the gear up and they could land on their belly. You could do both, but obviously it's the 80s or 90s and it was just a different time. But this is just overly dramatic the way that they say this.
Joe knows this is his last chance to save Scott.
Unless Scott had a bunch of ammunition and bullets and stuff that were taped to the bottom of the plane, it would have been fine to land the way I was suggesting earlier, the 2 tires, or all the way on the belly and then just stop there on the runway. It would have been fine. But again, back in the day, I guess you could do whatever you want, and they got in a turbocharged sedan, which is, I don't know, a fast car. It would have been cooler in like a Ferrari or something, but either way, it worked out fine. Now, if you want to see a 747 that had the exact same problem, and I didn't see any airport operations get out there to pull the tire down, which I would appreciate for you to do for me if I ever encounter this situation, but it's a 747 landing with some gear missing. Check out this video here, and if you want to see some pilots arguing with air traffic control, check out this video up here. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.